Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the board for inviting me to this special meeting to present some information that a few members had approached me about getting some more information on of a policy review of the religion in schools. There's been some things happening in the community and kind of around our school that the board members and other community members have been hearing and have had questions about what is allowable and what isn't. So I gathered a team, my building leadership team, and we worked on this presentation together. We did some of the research and kind of compiled everything into this slideshow presentation that I'm getting ready to use with you tonight. The agenda that we're going to look at some of the historical and current research on it, some of the history and recent legal cases that have come about. Also look at the current Department of Education's guidance that have been passed to the states and then passed down to us, and then our current policies that are in place you are going to be able to look at. So beginning with the historical research, this kind of first started in the 1800s with Catholics versus Protestants, and arguments over which version of the Bible should be used in schools to teach religions and which prayers to use. The King James Bible was being used, and the Catholics had a different viewpoint on which one should be used. It ended up fighting broke out in Philadelphia, and some churches were burned, people were injured, and things got out of hand very quickly. And then later in the 20th century, teaching of Darwin's evolution theory, liberal Protestants had questions on whether students should be taught evolution in a biology class instead of learning about creationism. So then federal cases started to come up in the 1940s and had to do with the Establishment Clause and Exercise Clause. And these two clauses state, Congress shall make up no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And cases started to come to invalidate having instructors from different denominations come into school to offer lessons and allowing public schools to excuse students to attend religious classes during the day. And kind of the first big case was Engel versus Vitale in 1962, which the court stated there could be no school-sponsored prayer at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, at meals, those type of things. And then in 1963, the court decided that it was not constitutional to have daily Bible readings during the school day, so they eliminated that. And then even most recently, an issue in 2000 prohibiting prayer before and after football games. And looking at the Constitution prohibits public schools from indoctrinating children in religion. Separation of state and religion is where this comes into play, but then you also have the First Amendment that does protect freedom of speech and freedom of association. So that's where a lot of these cases, they come down to the First Amendment and looking at, are they being forced upon students or staff, or is it something that is a freedom of speech, freedom of association? Different religious groups have used these guarantees in the First Amendment in support of student religious speech and religious clubs during the school day or after or before. The right of a student or a club to engage in religious speech or activities on school property can take place, but they cannot conflict with others' protections, such as a student's right to avoid harassment. We see these a lot with religious shirts or sayings that have to do with sexuality, and then that is harassing towards different populations in the school that may identify as homosexual or something like that. And then also with the First Amendment, you cannot exclude certain members from a group who do not share your same beliefs, specifically on questions of maybe sexuality. Moving on towards the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. In Engel versus Vitale in 1962 again, this is where the Establishment Clause prohibited the I can't ever say this word, for them to recite a school-sponsored prayer in public schools. It does not limit that students cannot pray, but it just cannot be school-sponsored. In Abington School District in 1963, this is where daily Bible reading was eliminated by the court. It ruled that it was unconstitutional for them to sponsor daily Bible reading. In Lee versus Weissman, it invalidated a school-sponsored prayer led by an invited clergyman to like a graduation, commencement, those type of things. And that started in Wyoming. And then in 2019, the court upheld a firing of a football coach who at a public high school was praying on the field with his players after the games. In the pledge, in 1954, Congress revised the pledge to include "under God," a phrase that has been since used by all. And this did come into question in 2004 in Elk Grove versus Newdow, where the person brought this upon the school district that it was unconstitutional, but the court did not ultimately decide whether the phrase was acceptable because of a custody issue with the person that was filing the case. And it has not been brought up since at the federal level. So now looking at the religion in our school curriculum, using the Bible as literature is acceptable. You cannot use it to teach scripture or lessons from the New Testament or Old Testament, but it can be used as a piece of literature for students to read. You can teach about the role of religion in history. There is a rich history, as you all know, with religion, and almost every single war that has been fought on our planet had something to do with religion almost. So the role that religion has in our history is very rich, so it can be taught. And then courses can be offered on comparative religion, looking at the different religions, on how they're similar, how they're different, the roles that they play in everybody's lives. Looking at Darwin's theory of the origin of species through evolution by means of natural selection. Opponents favor teaching some type of creationism from the book of Genesis in the Old Testament, or evolved under the guidance of a supreme being. More recently, an alternative to Darwinism is intelligent design, where it shows that life is too complex to have arisen without some type of supreme being or divine intervention. In some of the cases with creation versus evolution, Epperson versus Arkansas in 1968, the court ruled that it could not eliminate the theory that mankind descended from a lower order of animals. They were fighting to get rid of evolution. Edwards versus Aguillard in 1987 turned down a law that required a balanced treatment of evolution and creation science, so that any biology teacher who taught one also had to teach the other. They turned that down. Kitzmiller versus Dover in 2005, Pennsylvania started to try to offer intelligent design as an alternative to evolution, but the court concluded that intelligent design violates the Establishment Clause because it is religious rather than scientific theory. Holiday programs have them every year, especially in the elementary. For a holiday music program to be constitutionally sound, the school must ensure the predominance of it being secular, such as the educational value, the musical qualities of the piece. Students should also not be forced to participate in the program if it goes against or if it offends their beliefs, religious beliefs. Looking at multiculturalism, the use of symbols from all religion, it has to be secular, everything equal, especially not having a Christmas nativity scene in the school or crosses The use of like a symbol of a Christmas tree is widely known of what Christmas is to our religion. Moving on to rights outside of school. This all started with students of what their rights were, of what they could do, shortly, or about the time of Vietnam and Tinker v. Des Moines, which the court upheld that it was okay for students to wear armbands protesting the Vietnam War. It also ruled that the school could not suppress expression by students unless the expression disrupted school discipline or invaded the rights of others. Religious expression rights. Several interest groups devoted to religious freedom and other civil liberty groups drafted this set of guidelines that the U.S. Department of Education Secretary sent to every school superintendent in 1995. And it was revamped or revisited in 2003. And these 4 bullet points kind of hit the main points that was sent out. And students have the right to engage in religious activities. Students may offer prayer before meals. Students may not engage in religious harassment, and schools may neither favor nor disfavor students or groups on the basis of their religious identities. Moving on to parents, their rights outside of school and in school a little bit here. Wisconsin versus Yoder. This upheld the right of the old order Amish to withdraw their children from formal education at the age of 14 instead of 16, which was the state law at the time, because it was a burden to the free exercise clause of their religion. They got out at 14, they went to work, they were upstanding citizens. It was well known that they were going to get out of work at 14, or get out of school at 14 and go straight to work. Menorah versus Illinois High School Association in 1982. This was to accommodate the Orthodox Jewish basketball players that wanted to wear head coverings during basketball games, despite that the association had a rule forbidding headgear at that time. Mozart versus Hawkins, Board of Education in 1987. This happened in Tennessee, complained to books that had things about evolution, feminism, magic, and those type of things in different reading curriculum that offended Christian beliefs. And then Brown versus Hot, Sexy, and Safe Productions in 1995. This had to do with sexual education, but the court upheld that like the one-time exposure to this material did not burden the constitutional rights of the parents' freedom to teach their child about, in high school students, about safe sex. School personnel, when staff are off duty, they have free reign to exercise their religion. They also, if they're asked during the school day what they're, are they a Christian, they can answer yes. Are they Jewish, they can answer yes, no, whatever it may be. But when on duty, the Establishment Clause is in effect at all times, so they cannot be teaching about their religion, their personal beliefs, and those type of things. And in a recent case in 1999, Roberts versus Madigan, the principal had a teacher remove religious posters, artwork from the classroom, and also a couple of books about the life of Jesus or in the Bible and pictures, and also had the teacher stop reading the Bible during class time and have the Bible off of that teacher's desk. Excuse me. And now moving to the Department of Education's recommendations and guidelines, and from ESEA Act of 1965 and then modified to ESSA, requires Secretary to provide guidance on constitutionally protected prayer in public elementary and secondary schools. Moving to local educational agencies, the LEA must provide the documentation to the state that has a policy that prevents or otherwise denies participation in protected prayer. They must have this done by October 1st in order to receive federal funds, and the LEA could face a complaint filed by the Secretary of Education if those things are not completed on time. Looking at equal access, this is information from the U.S. Department of Education, talking about First Amendment, what they require, and then what teachers and other school officials can and cannot do. Moving forward to equal access, prayer during non-instructional time. Students may pray when not engaged in instruction or activities. They may read religious literature and scripture, pray before meals, and study religious reading during non-instructional times. Organized prayer groups like meet at the pole before school for certain religious clubs or prayer groups. And they have to be given the same equal rights to the facilities as other non-curricular student activity groups. School staff are prohibited by the First Amendment from encouraging or discouraging prayer. They may also take part in religious activities such as prayer during their workday or at a time when it is permissible to go and run copies, answer the phone, and things like that. Moments of silence. If a school does have a moment of silence or other quiet periods during the school day, as long as schools don't encourage or discourage participation in such, and students can pray silently or not pray at all. Accommodations of prayer during instructional time. Schools do have the discretion to dismiss students to off-premises religious places for instruction. And again, they cannot discourage or encourage or penalize students for attending or not attending these things. Prayer and class assignments. Students may express their beliefs about their religion in their homework, and assignments, artwork, and other written or oral assignments, free from discrimination towards others about their religion and perspective of the other's religion. Student assemblies. Did it again. Sorry. Student speakers at student assemblies and non-curricular activities such as sporting events may not be chosen because of religious beliefs or anything like that. Prayer at graduation. Schools cannot mandate or organize a prayer at graduation or anything like a commencement that favors one religion over the other. And a baccalaureate ceremony. School officials may not mandate or organize these religious ceremonies either. So what can schools do? Religious literature. Students have the right to distribute religious literature to others. They just cannot force it upon others. Teaching about religion. May not provide religious instruction, but may teach about religion. Student dress code. They can wear religious clothing as long as it does not be harassing towards others or suppressive of others' rights. Excusals. Schools may excuse students to attend religious motivated requests from parents. Publicized meetings. Student groups are allowed to use school media to announce meetings and other announcements, just like any other extracurricular activity. And religious groups. Religious student groups are allowed to use facilities and serve in leadership positions. So where do we go from here? As it states here that schools remain a battlefield where all these different stakeholders have different views and opinions, inside the classroom, outside, in sporting events, everything. So looking at the information given to you and to the board policies that are currently in place, you will have to make your own decision on that. Here are the references from the Pew report, where a lot of this information came from, then also from the U.S. Department of Education. And credits to Slides Carnival and Google Images. So thank you for giving me some time to present this information to you today. I hope you learned something from it. I hope you use some of this information to look into our board policies and make the right decision. Thank you.